Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day to all of you, my dear students. I hope that you are doing well. So if I just take you towards those components that we have tried to cover in our, particularly the previous lecture, methods of citation and the referencing styles which are commonly used, and we looked in detail towards MLA and APA, which is also used here as well. So after covering these components, which are of course very much important whenever you have to prepare a draft, and at the end, of course, if you have done a survey, if you have gone through the material, of course, in order to acknowledge all those sources and in order to claim the fact that the following components belong to me, whereas the other components have been taken from these sources as provided within the reference list. So now you know how to prepare a reference list in addition to all the document which you have to prepare of any form, and it will be helpful throughout your life. That's why it had to be learned right from the beginning till the end. Now, taking you towards our today's objective, we'll be talking about resume and CV writing. CV means curriculum vitae. So if I talk about these two terms, these are very much common and are in use throughout your life. You have to maintain a resume, or I can call it you have to maintain a CV, which keeps on updating. You update it with the passage of time because it's something which is like a profile or a document representing your biodata. It's like a timeline. Just the way you have a timeline at your social networking site, the way it keeps on changing, it keeps on evolving. But this one becomes a bit more formal. If I take you towards the bullets, you'd be able to understand what these resume and CV are. So if we talk about starting from the basic component of resume, it's like a document which is used to present your skills and abilities. I hope that you got the idea. Now, if I talk about the word resume itself, of course, it's a word which attracts you. That what's so special about it, and why this word typically has been chosen to reflect and to simply categorize a document which is used for presenting your skills, your abilities, your biodata, all your credentials, and of course a document, as you're going to see within the upcoming bullets as well, that you use for applying for a job, and in addition a document which gives you the success of the opportunity of getting an interview. So for all this, your resume or your CV is basically used. There is a minor difference if you're going to cover within the upcoming slides of this lecture as well. But to talk about the etymology or the origin of this word resume, of course, if I talk about the word itself, it's a word of late Middle English. If I just give you a reference of the English language itself, it's evolving, and we are basically speaking the modern English that we hear around ourselves. You can also call it as postmodern because there is a specific age which is considered the modern age, this number of years to this number of years in 1900s. But the point is here is that after those years, whatever is happening is considered to be postmodern, and there are some other theories and ages as well which are being categorized. But the point here is that English language, the way it evolved, it has been divided into different ages. You call it as Old English, it is like 450 to 1100, and then you have the Middle English 1180 to 1580, and then after 1500 and onwards you basically have the modern English. So I am basically referring to the late Middle English, and within that English you had this word of resume. In what form was it taken within this late Middle English? Well, there are two origins which are basically considered to be the primary sources of the word resume. One is the old French language, in which this word used to be in the form of resumer. And there is another source which is also considered to be the first place of origin for the word resume, and that is Latin, of course. And in Latin, this word comes in the form of resumer. If I'm not wrong, resumere, R-E-S-U-M-E-R-E, resumere, within which your R-E basically refers to back, and resumere is taking. So taking you back is basically the meaning of resumere, and which is now used and pronounced and spelled as R-E-S-U-M-E and pronounced as resume. You stress on re and resume. But now this is one component of our today's lecture, in which you should know basically the etymology and the origin of the word. Now you know it is either from French resumer or Latin resumere. A bit old, but that's why that is how you basically give it a timeline of its origin. Now taking you towards what it basically refers to. So as it takes you back, it basically a document which is used to take you back to show what kind of skills and abilities do you possess. Within that document, you simply document and mention each and every quality that you possess. But in what form, in what format is something that we're going to study in detail. One point to remember here, of course, is that it's something official, so it has to be formal. So there has to be a difference between a resume and an autobiography, because autobiography, as you are well aware of it, is something which reflects your history, of course, right from the beginning, and it's a history that is written by the writer himself or herself, of himself and herself. If I am writing a biography of myself, it would become an autobiography. If I am writing a biography for you, of you, or if there is someone who is writing my biography, it would be biography. But if I am writing a biography of myself, would become an autobiography, in which I am going to mention each and every component right from the beginning, my early nurturing, then my schooling, then my likes and dislikes, and everything, every event of my life. So the important event that I really want to quote and mention within that book. So it will become an autobiography. But this is the point to be mentioned here, that you do not have to turn this resume into an autobiography, because the point here is, the objective is going to mention it, that it's a document stating your professional credentials. All those qualities, all those points, all those skills and abilities that really determine that you are the professional, you are the individual the organization is seeking for a specific post, and you're going to really contribute to fill within that organization, to contribute and to fill up that vacant spot, and then it will become a complete unit. There is something missing and you have it. So you have to prove and you have to mention this within your resume, within your document, that you have the abilities and skills which are needed to perform a task, rather than mentioning all the stories and events which have happened within your past, because that is how you'll be maintaining a difference between an autobiography and a resume. And this point will also make things clear that, of course, job is another goal, but right now your target has to be that it has to be prepared for an interview, because this interview will be the first step, and then you will be getting a job. So as you will see in the upcoming lecture as well, you will be prepared for something which will come right after your submission of a resume, an interview. But it's too early to talk about it. First, you should know how to design the right resume which is going to take you towards the stage of an interview, and then of course you will be hired for the job and professional. But the point here is, you have to be prepared, you have to be well aware of how to prepare your resume and your CV by looking into their characteristics. Point here is that your resume acts as an advertisement. An advertisement is something through which you do a publicity of some product, anything which is supposed to provide some sort of benefit. And once you take it, you'll be the one getting all those benefits. So resume is also a kind of an ad or an advertisement of you, in which you basically mention all the benefits which can be acquired, which can be achieved once you become part of a company or an organization or an office. So that's how it has to be structured as an ad as well. How can you turn it into an advertisement? By knowing a clearly defined purpose, and it should reflect your achievements, and it should be a summary of what you are and what you can do, how you can provide the benefit. Another thing which is important is that your data has to be credible, something which makes sense, something which can be believed in, and it has to be accurate as well, rather than building castles. Then of course it has to be in an attractive form as well. It should be an attractive package, and it can be an attractive package once you know how to design it, how to prepare it, once you're aware of the format and its structuring, looking at its components. Then of course it focuses on employers' needs rather than your own needs. This point is also very much important. If you are highlighting that you are in need of a job and you are in search of some place where you are able to make the ends meet because you are just living hand to mouth, so that means you are seeking advantage on your own. You are looking at an advantage that you can get. Well, the point here is the organizations are not interested to provide you the advantage. First point is that they need services, and if you are offering them the services, in return of course you will get a reward in the form of salary or all the other funds, the grants which have been mentioned within the contract. But the point here is that if they are seeking services, you have to offer them. So basically you have to mention this thing within the resume as well, that these are the components through which an organization can get benefit out of me, rather than you getting benefit out of the organization. That will come automatically once you are hired, but you have to mention this thing within your resume as well, that these are the employer needs and these will be fulfilled once I become part of it. So this should be the focus and should be maintained within your resume structure. Now looking at the format. This is one format, of course, in which is quite common as well, the chronological. Chronology means moving in the temporal direction. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is chronology, basically chronology, in which you are doing one thing on Monday, you're going to mention it first. If there is anything which you have done on Tuesday, it will come afterwards. Then Wednesday, then Thursday and Friday. You can do it by writing something which you have done in January, then writing something which you have done in February afterwards. So you are basically moving just the way a clock is moving. So basically this is the temporal direction, and it's considered to be a chronological pattern. And if you are writing something, so it becomes chronological writing. So the point here is that you have to mention in the work history in reverse chronological order. Now you know that if you are moving in the direction of a clock, so that is basically a chronological order. But if you have to go opposite to the direction of a clock, that means basically a reverse chronological order. And basically the advantage that you get by using the reverse chronological order is that if you are working at some place, your present place, and you have been working at some other company in past, so you get the opportunity of mentioning your present job at the top, then the job which you just left afterwards, then the job that you started at the very first place, the oldest job at the very end. But your latest experience basically comes at the top. So this is the format of a chronological resume, and it basically gives you like an advantage of showing that you are still working at a job which is quite relevant, directly related to the kinds of skills and abilities which are needed in another job for which you are applying. So if it becomes relevant, then of course you can use the chronological format. Then there is of course a functional format of a resume. The point here is that you have been working in different organizations and you have performed different tasks which are not directly related to one another. You just try to acquire different skills and abilities. You try to sharpen them. You try to make yourself a better professional so that if you are fitted in any different unit, you are able to handle it. So for that, basically, you can use a functional format. Over here, the chronology or this reverse chronology is not required. The point here is that you have to mention each and every skill which simply determines that you are a capable individual who is able to handle different kinds of tasks. So work history here is not directly related with a job selected as a profession, because you have been doing different things. So you are mentioning them within your resume for applying for a job, but they are not directly related to the kind of skills needed. You are just mentioning them that you are able to handle anything. So you can go for the functional format. This is the quality. And resume is basically organized on different types of skills. You just mention them in any order. Depends on, I would recommend, and anyone would recommend, that something that you consider is at a place in which you have the expertise level. You are an expert of some skill, so you should mention it at the top. Then if there is a skill in which you consider yourself to be an intermediate, like a moderate level expertise, so you mention it second. And then if there is a skill of which you consider yourself to be a beginner, it would come third at the end. So this is the order in which you can prepare a functional resume. And if I take you towards the third format, this is basically known as a combination format. Over here, the point here is that you have acquired different kinds of skills, of course not directly related to the kind of job for which you are applying, but you mention them reverse chronological order. So if you are doing it in a reverse chronological order, opposite to the direction of a clock in which it ticks, then you are using the combination format. So different skills but in a reverse chronological order. So it becomes a combination format. Clear? Okay, now we are going to look into the structuring of a resume. You can pick the kind of format which suits you. If you have different kind of skills, so you can either go for the functional, or you can go for, in case all the skills are directly related, and show that with the passage of time you are becoming better and better, and that is how you make yourself most eligible for the job. So in that case, all the skills are related, and of course with the vacant post, so you're going to mention them in a chronological order. That now the new place is going to be the best area where you're going to deliver all the things and abilities which you have acquired and learned. So now how to structure it, all the things that you want to mention, there has to be an order. What is that order is now basically something which you're going to focus on. Starting from the identification. Identification, of course, all those qualities through which your employer, your interviewer can identify who you are. The identity that you have to reflect it by mentioning your name, full name, your postal address through which you can be contacted, your numbers, of course, for the same purpose, and your email address. And look at the point which is there within parentheses. It has to be a professional email. Now I believe you know the differences between an unprofessional email and a professional email address. We talked about it in detail. You're well aware of it, so I don't think there is a need of going into the detail. So you should have a professional email over here within your identification section. This is a sample. You can look into the balloons here on the right hand side, giving you all the guidance related to the manner in which to write it. This is the sample. You have a name. This is optional if it's needed. Sometimes there is a specific age limit for different kinds of job. Over here, if you are applying for such a job, then it's a good thing to mention your date of birth, your year of birth. Otherwise, it's optional. You can ignore it as well. But the personal details are very much needed, because that is how your employer would be able to correspond and contact you for the interview, the next stage of the interview, selection, and of course for giving you the contract, which is something that you seek. So that is how basically the address, mobile and email is going to come. And this is in blue, so an example of an incorrect, which cannot be considered a professional email. So don't use such email sugar-coated at hotmail.com. Won't look nice. Then of course you move ahead with the structure. So you come to the stage of providing a clear-cut objective or a personal statement. You have to clearly state your desired job and field. What do you basically desire? In case of your resume, it has to be even more specific. As you're going to see, what we're going to study in case of a CV, it can be a bit generic, but over here it has to clearly state the kind of job which is desired, the kind of field in which you can work. What can you contribute in a field? How will it add value in the organization? The material following, which would come of course afterwards, these 3 points should support your objective. The way you have stated your objective is going to determine how capable you are. And the next thing that the employer is going to see is that all the components which are coming ahead, are they directly simply supporting or advocating your objective or the personal statement which you have mentioned. There is an option, of course, in case of the objective or the personal statement. You can either write the objective or the heading of the personal statement, but the general qualities are almost the same, that you have to clearly state what you are and what you can do for the organization and what would be the outcome as a result of your contribution once you become a part of an organization. So the objective should be as short as possible. It has to be concise. You know the C of communication, and should not include phrases such as challenging position, utilizing my skills, growth potential. Avoid it. It has to be short. It has to be clear. For a specific job opening, always use the employer's job title for that as well. So if you want to make your resume more relevant, more pertinent, and especially the one which catches the eye of your employer, your interviewer, so of course you can clearly mention the job title within your objective. And of course you should keep in mind the kind of job description which is also available in case of a vacancy which is being announced either online or in newspaper or any other media or channel. But the point here is you should have this job title within your mind, and if you mention within your objective, the employer is going to straight away look at this point that this man or woman has the quality that we are looking for. He or she is well aware of it, and she should be the person which should be chosen, which should be given the opportunity for an interview. So this is the thing which can give you the advantage if you mention it one way or another in case of your objective or the personal statement. Now look at the sample as well. After successfully completing my year 12 in the area of maths and science, I am now focusing on a career in microbiology. Or while pursuing specialist science subjects at university, I am seeking a position that can help develop my practical lab skills and statistical analysis and so on. But basically it has to explain what you are looking for and what you can offer. As you can see in the balloon as well, you have to keep it brief, 1 to 2 sentences, and you can see the kind of context that is being provided to you. It's a kind of a resume which you prepare as after your, of course, education, the college level or the high school education, once you are become part of a university, because this is the place in which you start thinking about the career that you want to select, the career that you want to pursue. So of course for that you need a kind of resume which can reflect who you are. So this is the kind of initial stage in which you can start working on preparing one resume, and the kind of chunks and the kind of examples which are being provided to you are the ones which you can use to prepare your own as well. We're going to show you the kind of other resume which you can simply look into and then also apply and use them for preparing your own resume. But the point here is, once again, that this is the kind of a resume which can be prepared, especially if you don't have any. Then you can start with this one, as we have some other tips as well for preparing a resume for the very first time. So this is one sample in case of writing an objective, or you can call it as a personal statement. Once you have done with this objective writing, the next stage is the skills and abilities. And what can you mention here? Any skills which are directly related to the job. Can be computer system proficiency if you are seeking a career in case of computer sciences, software engineering, there are many more, language proficiency, and research. So if you are more oriented towards research and development, if you want to be like a research officer, so for that, of course, you need to show the research skills that you possess. Language proficiency if you want to be a kind of interpreter or any other place where your communication skills would be tested, so you have to show it within this skills and abilities section that you have the command, you have the control, and you have the proficiency which is needed here. Over here you have the sample. You can clearly look into the kind of skills being provided. Over here IT skills are being mentioned, qualification and proficiency of Microsoft Office, and the research skills are also being reflected. I developed strong scientific research skills for a range of projects undertaken. Over here there is a reference of this first person, I developed, I am highly computer literate. Well, this is okay for the beginning level, but once you move ahead, it's better, as you have learned as well within the initial stages of technical communication and technical writing, that you avoid and try to avoid the use of first person, especially I. The point here is you have to show and focus the skills that you possess, rather than making it egocentric that you can do this, you can do that, I can do this, I'm able to do this. I is okay, you are the one who's going to contribute everything. But what basically can you contribute is basically the skills and abilities that you develop. You will be there and you will be given the advantage of contributing. But your contribution basically matters for the organization, and therefore you have to highlight what you actually can do rather than your own existence. If you are doing I, and again, I am able to do this, I can do that, that means you are trying to simply highlight that I am the one who is in limelight and I can do everything. If you simply do not select me, then you'll get wasted. So this is okay, no problem with it if you really want to highlight yourself. But the problem is that they'll have many other people as well, and they'll be looking for humility, sincerity, and commitment. And of course the skills. They want skills, not just you. You are the one who is there with the abilities. This is the point, which is why I'm explaining it to you again and again, that focus on what you can do rather than who you actually are. That will remain with you all the time, your identity, but try to make yourself capable. So therefore, focus on the skills which are important. Mention all the things which you have done, which you can do, and which you have achieved. I further developed my practical science skills, and over here once again you can see these are the helping material which can be used, which can be mentioned in case of your skills. Now comes the next stage of education, in which you have to mention your degrees which you have received, of course once again in a reverse chronological order. Why? Because the employer wants to see how qualified you are, what is your highest degree, how capable you are, and your highest degree basically determines your maturity level, your experience, your exposure, your ability of handling different difficulties and tasks. So of course, if I take you back, my apologies, be sure to include the name of each institution its location, and your date of graduation. So it has to be mentioned as well. When applicable, include your major minor fields as well as your GPA and honors, your publication and projects. When possible, when applicable, when needed, of course, so you can mention it as well. Now moving ahead, this is basically the sample of the manner in which you can mention the education. So now you can see a reverse chronological order, the way it is coming, moving here, 2005, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're mentioning universities, and over here some other balloons for your guidance. You can look into it and follow the instructions the way these have been provided. Another sample, the way you can just directly relate it, first mentioning the kind of education you have acquired and then directly relating it with the kind of skills which you have developed. So you can use this format as well. Once you're done with it, you're going to talk about the work experience. So if there is some work experience which you have acquired, in your case, there may be many who have done some sort of work, so of course you can mention it, of course, once again in a reverse chronological order, and you have to mention your jobs, internship, volunteer work, name of the company, position, and date of employment. So these are the things which have to be mentioned. You can include a volunteer experience section as well to convey your leadership communication skills as well. You have to show what you have learned, and in journal, if you have no experience, so you will have less chance. But if you have a bit experience, even if it's a volunteer experience, you will always have an edge over the person who does not even have this volunteer experience. So try to attain even this volunteer work. You can start, even I did this volunteer work as well of teaching at the beginning, and with that I was able to become employed as well in a university. So there is nothing wrong with doing this volunteer work. Don't always go for the money. It'll come automatically if you have the right skill, if you have the right ability. So you have to develop it, be it in volunteer work, but start with something, because that is going to make a difference. Now look at the way, in the manner in which you can mention this work experience. Your school work experience also counts, and that can be made part of your resume as well, just the way laboratory assistant and research assistant. So these things are clearly mentioned, and list any work experience which you have completed. It could be formal. You can highlight your key skills, and it's useful to list current or any part-time job as well which you consider to be important and related to the kind of job that you are seeking, for which you are applying. If it's relevant, of course you can go for it, for mentioning it over here. Then comes your interest. Interest, some consider it to be optional, but I say that if it's related to, if it's linked with the kind of job that you're about to take, then it can't be ignored. And we have the example as well. First point, of course, is you have to include this section of hobbies and interest. Just the way I mentioned it, if it's related to your position. For example, if you're applying to work at a sporting goods store, you can mention your interest in sports. If you are related with that thing, you have a passion to be a sportsman, then I don't think there will be anything problematic in case of this sporting goods store, because you'll have the world, the paradise of which you wanted to become a part. So if you have this store, there will be nothing wrong with it, and you can mention it as well, that it's directly related with the kind of job that you are about to take. So that's how your interest also counts, matters, and can be included within your resume. This is the way in which you have mentioned your interest for swimming and your membership of Highfields Swimming Club, because it becomes a bit relevant with the kind of job which you want to take. You can be a trainer, and if you want to be a trainer, you have to show that you have the skills which are needed. In case of scientific research and investigation, you are a member of several science-related chat rooms and bulletin boards, and the way it goes on. Asian food in particular, if you want to be a chef, there is nothing wrong with it, provided you have the passion, you have the skills, and you really want to show that you have what it takes to be a master chef, so you can simply mention it over here in your resume, in your hobbies, in your interest. At the end, of course, you provide a list of your referees and alongside their reference letters in the form of enclosure. Then the point to consider in case of your references is that they should be your colleague, your teammate, your teacher, or your supervisor. In other words, someone who knows you well can be your referee, and they can also write a reference letter for you, which can be provided, which can be enclosed alongside your resume. But the point here is your referee has to be someone who knows you well, because if they know you well and in case there is a correspondence of your interviewer, your employer with the referee, of course they're going to give them a positive feedback which would encourage them to call you for an interview. So that's how you have to pick the right referee for yourself, rather than someone with whom you don't have the right kind of correspondence. So you have to keep that point in mind. Another thing is that you need to you basically require your up-to-date contact details of a referee. You have to keep them updated so that if they are being contacted, your employer may not face any kind of problem for doing this correspondence with your referee. So you need to make sure the kind of number being provided and the email addresses and even the address itself, the postal address, all these things are well authenticated, they are right, they are accurate, and your future employer can easily contact them, ask them to simply describe you, talk about you and your special qualities that can really make a difference once you become part of an organization. And for that you have to keep yourself and keep their address well updated and mention it then afterwards, but after their permission. That also becomes very important. Don't just write their names without seeking permission. Once you get the permission, then you can do it, and do it in the form of enclosed reference letters. So not just their names if it's possible, and there will be occasions in which you'll be asked for the reference letters as well whenever you are applying even for a scholarship. So they always ask for the reference letters of your referee. So you mention their name, but in addition to that, their reference letters are also demanded. So therefore, if you enclose reference letters, you can have the templates, you can have them written already, so you can use them, and these will count in case of your job. Over here, of course, you have the name of those referees, the way you mention them, and written reference letters are also enclosed. You provide them alongside. But who can be your referee? Of course, the same kind of instructions are being provided here. Again, the point here is that it has to be up to date, and written reference letters should be enclosed and provided alongside. These are the points. Once again, the same guidance, but that is how you also provide a list of referee. And sometimes reference letters are provided if they are demanded, if they are asked. You don't just simply share them directly. So it varies from situation to situation, varies from the profession to profession, but if they are needed, they can be provided. Otherwise, a simple line would suffice that reference will be provided afterwards, or if demanded, if needed. Now some of the guidelines in case of preparing your own resume, because now I believe you have realized how important a resume is and how to organize your own up-to-date, right and authentic resume which really reflects who you are, what you can do, and what would be the outcome. Now these things should be there within your mind. And now follow up the guidelines. Regarding the length, this is very much important. I consider it very important. It shouldn't be 1 page or not more than 1 or 2 page. Ideally 1 page will suffice. It's very good. But if you really want to add details, you believe that you have done so much throughout your life that it will all get wasted if you do not mention it, please do not take more than 2 pages, especially in case of resume. I'm not talking about CV. There will be a minor difference, but in case of your resume, please do not take it to more than 2 pages. 2 page max, and that will suffice. The point here is there is a reason. There are many applicants and employers, your interviews basically have to go through all those resumes. So if you are providing things to the point, they are clearly stated, well organized, just bring back all those traits of technical writing which we studied in our, I guess, lecture 7 or 8. But the point here is, think of all those traits, apply them, especially in case of preparing a resume. Clearly accessible document design, conciseness, clarity, audience, everything counts. And you have to keep these things in mind while preparing your resume. And then try to keep it on one page, because there is a, you can call it as a rule of thumb, but it's directly related with the use of thumb, your two thumbs as well. When you hold a paper in your hand, if I do it in front of you, this is a paper, and your interviewer is going to hold it here in front of him. They look at it, but things which would be the main focus, which would come within their eyes, would be everything which is above this thumb. So everything which is there at the top of the page would be the main focus. It would be the target. So if there is something which is most important, try to write it at the top, and it'll become most important component, and it would certainly catch the eye of your interviewer and your employer. This is basically the rule of thumb. And then the less important, that you consider a bit less important, can go at the bottom, because it will be read at the end. The most important thing, which would be remembered as well, would be the one that you have written at the top. So first impression would matter, and your first impression has to be the best. Therefore, write your best skills, write your best things at the top. Therefore, keep it minimum and try to mention most important material at the top. Then regarding the kind of font and size which would also be appealing, try to use Times New Roman. Arial Calibri would also be okay with 10 to 12 points, not more than that. It would make things easy to read. There can be a bit difference as well, especially if you want to write your name. You can increase the font size on the points because you want to highlight it more. But for the general text that you are writing, 10 to 12 points would be okay. For headings, of course, you can do a bit changes by increasing the size to highlight what section is coming ahead. Then talking about the page margins, in general, it's like 1, 1, 1, 1 from all sides. This is the page margin. And overall uniformity should be there within your layout. Everything has to be well balanced. What's coming first, then what's coming ahead, where to use the bullets and where to use headings. Everything has to be well balanced and uniform in one single balance. What are the points which have to be avoided? Unless the position or the post requires, better to avoid personal information such as this one. Not needed. Birthday may be needed because there is a certain age limit on certain jobs. You may know well about them, but the pointer is, at that point, of course, you need to mention your age. Then, of course, you have to check for accuracy to avoid all the typographical errors, the grammatical errors, the spelling errors, but you have to avoid them. And for that, you may also give your resume to some friend for reading as well. She may be able to point it out for you. Itemize your achievements with bullets to avoid the use of first person I, the point that I mentioned at the very beginning as well. Don't try to make your resume egocentric, because if you are doing, I can do this, I can do that, I am able to do this, I achieved this, you are making yourself important. Try to make your work important, and for that, itemize your achievements. How do you itemize? You know how you receive an itemized bill. It's organized, it can be in the form of bullet points. In a similar way, you use bullets to mention and highlight the skills that you have, the achievements and the awards that you have received and gained, rather than your own self, because it's part of you already. They cannot simply extract the skills out of you, they'll use it by hiring you. So you will be there, you will always remain important, but don't try to mention it yourself. Let the employers mention it to you, and that'll count, that'll make the difference. Some more: include all your contact information so that the employers can reach you easily, as provided within identification section. Your resume keywords should match the keywords of job description. I talked about your job title and its a reference within your objective. So if the keywords are directly linked with the kind of keywords which are there within the vacancy announced, there will develop a very strong link between your resume and the vacant post, because the job description would be describing what you are. So certainly the employers are going to say, this is the person that we need, man. Therefore, you try to connect the keywords of your resume with the keywords of the job. Select the resume format which suits your background and experience. Just the way I mentioned it, depends on if your work experience is directly related with the job, chronological. If your work experience simply shows that you can handle different tasks, functional. If you want to do it in the right order, in a chronological order, combination. So it depends on which format you want to go, and based on your background and your expectations and your abilities. Most important experience should be listed first with key accomplishment. Again, related to the rule of thumb, the way you hold it, the way you look at it. So my eyes would straight away come towards the things which are above my thumbs. So that's why it should be listed first. Objective should match the job you are applying for. So once again, your objective, in which you basically write who you are, what your expectations are, what you're going to contribute, and what would be the outcome as a result of you becoming part of an organization, should be directly related to the kind of job you are applying for. So if these are together, this is basically the point in which you basically specify that these are the goals and this would be the outcome. Your objective is very much specific, rather than I am searching for the kind of post in which, or the kind of university in which I am able to teach these kind of subjects, which would go in line with the kind of subjects, skills and expertise that I have. This is like a general statement which I have given, but it becomes a bit generic. You are opening up space of such a document which can be placed anywhere. In case of a resume, it has to be very much specific, that this is the kind of post for which these are the abilities that I possess, and this would be the outcome once these are being utilized, once I become part of a job. So if there is an order, a specific order in which the job title has been described, it is directly stated, and then the outcome is also clearly mentioned. So this is the kind of objective that you prepare for a resume. Use a template as a starting point for creating your own resume. This also is very much important, because if you start preparing your resume at the very first time, you may forget certain sections as well. You may get confused of how to write it. So there are different templates available, as you're going to see at the end of the lecture as well. You can use those templates to prepare your own resume for the very first time. Follow the employer's instruction for sending the resume. Once you have prepared it in a Word document or a PDF form, you can simply look into the instructions as provided by the employer, the way they want it. You can send it in the right format. You can simply look at some examples of other people's resume as well before preparing your own. That is also going to be a good guideline. You're looking towards their resume, you can prepare your own. Just the way even I at times share my resume as well with the others, and even I take others' resume as well to update and to foster and develop my own resume in a better way. So we can always update it, always try to make our own document better. There is nothing wrong with it, and you can keep on doing it. This is a sample of a chronological resume. It's written over here. You can look into it, the way it begins. Name, address, then objective, education, experience, work experience, languages, activities. You have everything. One page. You have a sample of a combination resume in which the skills matter, not just the timeline. If it's coming in the timeline, of course, combination as I mentioned here, so okay, but you also keep in mind that you have to mention different skills. Shouldn't be directly related with the kind of job for which you are basically applying, but of course you are trying to reflect that this is something which I did first, then I did this afterwards. So timeline being followed in a reverse chronological form and different skills being mentioned. That's why a combination resume. I slipped it with functional at the beginning, but the point here is the qualities of chronological and functional are combined together, which is why it's known as combination resume. You can look into its detail, but now I have to talk some more about curriculum vitae as well by comparing it with a resume. Well, the point here is CV as it's written over here, basically an abbreviation for curriculum vitae. This one also started to come in use within this 20th century, and of course the point here is that it's also related with this Latin origin. This one is simply defined or interpreted as that curriculum vitae basically refers to a course of life. The previous one was resume, or resumere is taking you back, and this one is course of life. So one way or another quite related, but the point here is that this one is interpreted or defined or translated from Latin into English is course of life. This is curriculum vitae, the way it's interpreted and the way it's defined. Now looking into what it has to offer, your CV is basically an outline of person's educational, professional history, which is usually prepared for faculty positions, research intensive position, and fellowship, grants or awards. This is basically the target, the focus in case of your curriculum vitae, as you're going to see it as well. Another difference when it comes to talking about or comparing your resume with a CV is of length. As I mentioned, in case of your resume, try to keep it brief. One page is like the best. They look at it and they clearly know who you are. You have to provide some detail. Try to go to the second page, at the back of a leaf, or it could be a second page. But the point here is not more than 2. In case of a CV, it can be a bit detailed. Not much detailed, but comparatively detailed when you compare it, of course, with a resume, because you have to provide a detail of, it has to provide summary of educational background, your teaching research experience, your publication, your presentation, your academic awards and honors. So there has to be a bit detailed with reference to all these components, because of course what are you seeking? Faculty position, research institute, fellowship or some grant. So these things become important. In case of their usage commonly, so in journal the term CV and curriculum vitae is used and is expected to be received by employers within Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia, for of course educational, academic and non-academic professions. So in general they use curriculum vitae for both purposes. But now taking you particularly towards the environment and the context of United States, they have this difference. In case of non-academic positions, they prefer a resume. But in case of an academic, scientific and research position, they go for the CV. So that's how there is a minor difference, which means that in case of non-academic, scientific or research position, they want things to be concise, concrete, clear to the point, and should be received with brevity. But in case of academic or this research or scientific position, they want a bit detail regarding awards, honors, publications and everything. It has to be clearly mentioned, area of expertise, research, dissertation. It should be there in case of a curriculum vitae. So this is the difference which should be there within your mind within these two contexts. Talking in journal, it has to be concise, it has to be accurate and truthful, not comparing it with resume. Conciseness means it itself has to be concise, mentioning things in an accurate way, in a truthful way, without any verbosity, not too much detail. Our curriculum vitae needs to be ordered according to the job description, whether teaching or research. This basically means that if your focus is a research grant, or if you want to join as a research officer, as a research associate, the point here is you have to mention within your CV things which are reflecting your research skills, your publication, your conference presentation, paper presentation, any kind of presentation which is reflecting your research expertise, your dissertations, your papers, your conference papers, it could be anything, but it should show that you're basically good at research, and it should come first, once again, above these thumbs. But in case of a teaching position, your teaching experience should be placed above these two thumbs. It should come first, and then you can of course write about research afterwards. Not saying to ignore it or to remove it, just I'm talking about the ordering. In case of a teaching position, teaching would be first. In case of a research position, research would come first. This is the difference. Otherwise, you have to mention both. Both are important. What to include in your curriculum vitae? Complete contact information, professional research objective, it has to be there, and it has to be a research objective. Academic research objective, because this is basically the purpose in case of your curriculum vitae. Then you have to talk about educational academic background, because it's important. So you have to talk about your postgraduate work, your graduate work, degree, major subjects, minor subjects, your thesis, dissertation, your titles, your honors. In case you are moving ahead, you talk about the undergraduate degree and its major minors as well. But once again, the order is the same, reverse chronological order. That's why postgraduate, graduate, and then undergraduate. Then of course you have to talk about the scholarships or fellowships which have been attained. You talk about the research and scholarly activities which are very important in case of a research position. These would be placed first. Your journal articles, conference, books, articles, presented, workshops attended, work currently under submission or in progress, even you can mention that as well. Your certifications, your professional membership, just the way I have memberships of different linguistic associations. But the point here is that you have to mention these things within your research and scholarly activities would remain separate, but you have to mention all these components separately within your CV. Moving ahead, technical and specialized skills, if you have any, should be mentioned. Academic and teaching experience. Once again, a teaching post, this would go first. If research position, so research will stay first and this will come afterwards. So courses taught, new courses introduced or recommended, innovation, if there is any that you have recommended, and some new mode of assessment, if you have worked on it, will be mentioned as well. Your academic and research interest, because of course you want to join as either an instructor or a researcher, so your interest should be mentioned. Your language proficiency, be it in native language or a foreign language, should be mentioned. Your volunteer work, once again, will be important alongside the references or the referee, once again will be important. So there are minor differences. Talking about this one over here, the objective, that was a research objective, would be generic. Over there, in case of a resume, it was more specific, related to a specific job which has been highlighted, for which you have applied by submitting the resume. This one will be a bit more general, highlighting the objective which is research oriented, that you want to contribute via research. Now this is the sample of a curriculum vitae. As you can see, this one basically is of 4 pages, which is why you can see page number 1 and 2. This left one is 1, the right one is 2. So the personal information, first name, middle name and last name, then the address, then you can see once again a reverse chronological order, the way the different jobs have been described. Then you can see what abilities have been, what kind of tasks have been performed in which year, editor, sub-editor, lab conductor, chief editor. Moving ahead, educational training, all the components, PhD, MPhil, PS, then talking about the personal skills, additional information, as you can see, all the conferences, workshops, certification, the different awards and honors, the interest, everything is clearly mentioned in a bit detail compared to the components which I have shown you within a resume. Well, this is the difference, and I had to do a bit of effort as well just to collect such a good curriculum vitae of a capable person, of course. But the point here is just to make you realize what kind of components have to be included and in what order when you are talking about a curriculum vitae. So there are minor differences, of course, but these differences make a difference as well when you are applying for a job. So keep these small minor components within your mind as well. Some of the points which should be there within your mind once you have prepared either a resume or a curriculum vitae. The point here is that you have to checklist these components, and if there is any of these which are missing, you can incorporate these, but you have to go through it just the way we are about to. You have listed awards, honors, certificates, licenses, accomplishment. If it is, check. Personal data is not included, age, marital status. In case of date of birth, of course, if needed, you can mention it. My degree title is spelled out and in bold because that is going to make a difference. Over here, Bachelor of Science. If you are moving ahead, you can also write Masters. The organization of my CV resume emphasizes the key points I want to stress. The content of my resume or CV matches my objectives. I emphasize my abilities, skills, and accomplishment. I use active power verbs to describe my work experience. So, just the way I graduated, I specialized in, I presented, I defended. These are the active power words which are reflecting what you have done, which means a reflection of what you can do even in future as well. So these are the active power verbs. I use proper text, tense, current work, present tense, previous work, past tense. So which means the point here is that you are using the right kind of tense. In case of talking about something which is really in past, you're using past tense. If it's something related to your present work, so use of present tense. Then an employer can quickly skim and scan and find all the information. If that's possible, you can check this one out. I've added a skill or related courses section to further support my objective. Check. Dates of work and job titles are clearly highlighted. You can check it as well. Categories are clear with text bulleted or indented to create eye appeal, accessible document design, and uniformity in layout. Type style and font size is consistent throughout, no smaller than 11 point. Of course, I talked about 10 to 12. Margins, spacing, bolding, bullets, punctuation, date formats and abbreviation, everything is consistent. I have avoided as much as possible using personal pronouns such as I or me. If it's being used in the beginning, okay. But in general, once again, the point here is it'll become egocentric. So just focus on the abilities itself, what you are capable of, what you have specialized in, what's so special about it. Focus on that rather than you. You'll become special automatically. There is a nice balance of information. It doesn't look too crowded or empty. A balanced is their equilibrium. I have proofread my CV for typos, spelling and grammatical errors. Check. List of references are on separate page, enclosure to accompany my CV resume if required. So once again, if needed, you can provide it. Otherwise, it's okay with the rest of the document as well. Now, once you're done with it, and to make things easier for you, just the way I told it, you can use sample templates for preparing your own resume. And of course, you can look at the example of other resumes as well for preparing your own. Well, these 3 links are very much useful, which is why I have added here in an additional slide by taking guidance from some of my fellow colleagues as well, because they have used it as well to prepare their own resume and CVs. Very good developers, These are basically the links through which you can prepare your resume and CV. That's how they appear. This is link number 1. You go there, you can clearly see you can create your CV by create a CV now. They'll go through certain stages in which you'll be asked for providing some contact information, identification, interests, skills, education, experience, everything. And once you have done it, you will get such a form which is going to be very much appealing even for yourself, and then you will be happy to submit it anywhere you want. Link number 2, resume.com. So this one can be very much helpful as well for developing your resume, and create a resume is the option where you can simply develop your own resume, of course, by signing up. And then moving ahead, this one is also a CV builder. You can simply go into it and start with it. So it's going to ask for certain instruction, empty boxes which you have to be filled up, and then you'll find your own CV, well developed CV at the end of the day. So these are very much helpful links, and hopefully they're going to be very much helpful for you. And with this, I come towards the end of our today's lecture, in which we talked about our resume, taking you back, or a curriculum vitae, which is basically a course of life. So we talked about their basics. We looked into the comparison, some of the minor differences, and some of the guidelines through which you can prepare your own CV and resume. And at the end, some important links through which you can develop it within no time. Just putting in some information to get it all well developed. There is another one about which I got to know even from my friend. Once again, LaTeX is also a software through which you can prepare your CV or resume, but only those, of course, who know how to work on LaTeX. So many of you may know about it, but in case of me, I am just like at a beginning level, but I haven't tried building my CV or resume through it. But it's also a good useful tool for those who know LaTeX. For the others, they can learn it just like me, the way I am learning it, but that is also a useful tool. And with this, I come towards the end, hopefully, and I believe that once you have gone through the lecture, you all will be anxious to try out those links to develop your own resumes and CVs, because once you do, and once you find the jobs, just submit those resumes and CVs, because through that you're going to get, inshallah, a call for the interview. And then what you have to do is basically watch out my next lecture, because in that lecture I'll be discussing all the interview skills, the techniques through which you can really make a difference and pave the way for getting up the contract for the new job. So I wish you best of luck till my next lecture. Take good care of yourself. I'll see you in the next lecture. Assalamu alaikum and thank you.